Hello and welcome to an episode of The Brain Game Changer, how heartfelt stories, awareness and education can change the game. Each week we delve into the experiences of amazing humans, advocates and organisations from all walks of life who share their adversities, the triumphs after tragedies, the milestones and those brain game changing moments right here in front of the mic. Through this journey together, we may find that we can learn some valuable tools, knowledge or education that will lead us into becoming game changers for ourselves, for someone around us, or even for our community. My name is Melissa. Thank you for inviting me into your space. It is great to be with you. Hello and welcome to episode 7 of the Brain Game Changer podcast, season 1. It is great to be with you and hope you're having a wonderful day, whatever you are up to. In this week's episode, we headed to the Netherlands, where I had the online pleasure of speaking with founder of the Concussion Community, Silvie van der Ray. Silvie shares how a ride home on a scooter one evening changed her life journey and the continual actions to get the proper and informed diagnosis of concussion and whiplash. We discuss her rehabilitation at Cognitive FX in Utah, one of the world's leading centres of concussion treatment, and how this process steered her in the direction of creating an online platform called the Concussion Community. In speaking with Silvie, it was obvious that she wants to provide as many resources and support to as many people who have experienced concussion or a similar adversity to make sure they do not feel alone. Okay, let's get into this interview. Good evening from Melbourne, Australia, Silvie, and welcome to the Brain Game Changer podcast.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
I feel really grateful that you're here. And I'm just going to share with our wonderful listeners out there how I came about knowing you and everything that you're doing. Probably about 6 months ago, I was really not in a good space. I was struggling. It was 6 months after my brain hemorrhage. I was confused. I felt very lonely. I felt very isolated. I was trying to understand what symptoms I was experiencing. So that's when I decided to join a couple of online brain injury support groups. And I came across an article and a blog that you put about your ebook. And I was automatically curious. I downloaded your ebook, then found all the information about you, started following you, and you have just so much knowledge and wealth to share with us.
Thank you.
Before we lean into everything that you're doing for the community out there, I just want to do a bit of a backstory, and I'd like you to share a bit about yourself, where you were living, because your life-changing event occurred 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But I just want you to give us a bit of a backstory about who you were back then, what you were doing, what was going on in your life.
Yes, of course. Yes. So for everyone who's listening, my name is Silvie. I am living in the Netherlands. I was living for 8 years in Amsterdam, and then in last January I moved to a more rural place in the Netherlands because the city of Amsterdam is really busy. And last week I had my 5th anniversary, and to be honest, I'm totally okay with it. So that's great. But before my accident, I lived in Amsterdam. I had a busy life, always going out, meeting friends. I worked full time for 40 hours a week. And I worked at a travel company for like 3 years. And then I sustained my concussion. So I had to stop working at the office. Yeah, my life changed a lot from very busy and always on the road, always seeing people. I had always fear of missing out. So I said yes to everything. And yeah, now my life is so different, but I'm more in peace, more happy. Yeah, I'm okay with it, but it took a very long time. It took me years. So for everyone who's listening, it can take time, and that's okay. I'm grateful for everything I learned, but as I said, it took a long time to see those positive things.
I'm going to lean into that day where things changed in your world. Can you explain to us exactly what happened?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I remember it like it was yesterday. I went for a meeting for work. I went to another city by train, and I went there with a friend. We drove on my scooter to the station to take the train. But when we went back, I arrived at the station around midnight. I didn't drink at all, and it was very quiet on the street. So I thought, why not taking a shortcut? So we drove home, and I was driving on a road where you're not allowed to ride. So it was my own fault. I was driving, and then I saw the lights were turning on green, and a lot of traffic came my way. There were bicycles, there was another scooter, there are cars, and I couldn't go anywhere. So on my left side, if I would turn out to the left, there would be bicycles. If I was going to the right, there would be a car. So the only thing that I could do was stop. But another scooter that came our way, and he didn't see me because he was texting on his phone.
Oh.
So we bumped into each other, and I fell on the roads. I thought I was okay because I wasn't unconscious. I didn't hit my head. So I thought I only hurted my ankle by that time. So I was just sitting there for like 5 minutes to just be more calm and to go home afterwards. I didn't feel like there was something wrong. So I went to work the next day as well, and I was feeling a bit weird, but I couldn't explain what was happening. So I just continued everything, and I went to work for the whole week. And every day it seemed like it was a bit more difficult, and I felt very overwhelmed and emotional. And on Friday, I told my boss, okay, I go home early because I'm not feeling well. And I told him, okay, I will take the weekend off and I will be back on Monday. But then Monday morning, I felt even more worse. And I called him, okay, I need an extra week. The week became a month, the month became months. And then tried to go back many times, but it didn't work out. So after almost, I think, 1.5 years, I decided to not even try to go back because it was holding back my health. I had to put my health first. And from that moment, I think things did change. It sounds a bit weird, but I started traveling because I thought I need a break from everything, from my social life, from work, because everything felt like too much. And by that time, it was hard for me to say no to social things. And when you don't attend all these things, it feels like you're very boring. So the best choice for me was to step out of this bubble in Amsterdam and for traveling to a more like a nature place. And then I stayed there for a few months, and I was just all by myself, just like recharging, and I just needed a reset. At the end, it was helping, but it didn't take away my symptoms, because when I came back, everything was the same again. That's a bit of my first 2 years.
That's a lot that's happened in the first 2 years.
Yeah.
At the scene of your accident, no medical attention was called.
Mm-hmm.
Once you felt you got checked, you went home. You then just proceeded to continue life and continue your day, and you realised something was wrong. And in that first sort of 1.5 to 2 years, was there a diagnosis of what you were experiencing?
No, there wasn't. I went to my doctor after the week that I was home, so a week after my accident, and he didn't tell me anything about whiplash or concussion. He never mentioned the words, but I told him everything. Like, I had a scooter accident, I was feeling restless, emotional. So I told him all the symptoms, but he just told me, it seems like you're doing a bit too much, just overwhelmed, just take some rest. And that was his advice. And he sent me home. And by that time, I didn't know what was going on. So I thought he's just right. I'm doing too much, and I just need some rest, and that's it. So I followed his advice, but yeah, of course, it didn't help. And I did go back because he told me take rest for a week and then you should be a lot better. But I wasn't. I was even feeling worse. I went back after a few weeks again, and then told him that I had a lot of neck pain as well, and my back was hurting. And I think I forgot to mention this in my first sessions, or it wasn't that worse. I'm not sure. But I told him about my neck and everything. And then he told me, okay, maybe you have a whiplash. He did send me to a physiotherapist. But in my first 2 years, no one ever mentioned the word concussion. And I didn't think of it myself because I didn't follow my head. And I always thought to get a concussion, you have to get a bump on your head or something. So I didn't. So I was always looking for therapies only for whiplash, but whiplash is more neck pain, and there are different symptoms for a whiplash when you compare it with a concussion. So yeah, my first 2 years, I never got the diagnosis of a concussion, and I never thought of it myself. So I'm just wondering why no doctor never told me this, because I did see some doctors, and I think this is like basic information.
I would also assume that the word concussion occurred because it was a direct contact to the head. Only doing more research or finding out more or having something impact me would I then think, okay, well, maybe there are other ways of having concussion. So I can understand like the confusion, the back and forth, the constant speaking to medical, and they're just sticking to an area without thinking outside the box. You finally got your diagnosis. You have concussion and other symptoms or other diagnoses with it. When did that happen?
A girl, she shared some article on LinkedIn, and I was reading it. I don't know where it came from, but it just popped up, and there was a story about a woman, and she was telling how she was feeling, and I just read it and I thought, this is me, like this is my story. And she wrote about a concussion, and she wrote about this clinic was Cognitive Ethics in Utah. It's a concussion clinic. So I thought, why not reaching out to this clinic, because I felt like this is maybe me. So I reached out, and I had to wait for the first call for like 1.5 months. And then we had a call, and I explained them everything about how I felt, about my neck pain. And I mentioned the word whiplash again, because I thought that's what I have. Then they told me, yeah, you have just a regular concussion. That's how they said it. And they said, okay, you can sustain a concussion from a whiplash. And it was totally new for me. So only that call opened so many more new doors, because I could finally search for more treatments for concussions and not for whiplash anymore. The concussion was the thing that was holding me back from living my life.
I'm really fascinated to hear about cognitive ethics. It must have been such a relief to finally get some words that connect with how you've been feeling for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And then you also go to the clinic in Utah. Can you explain what happened when you got there?
I went there in May 2019, so that was 2 years after my accident. And I arrived, and I remembered that I felt so welcome. Everything that I was thinking, they already mentioned. So I stepped in their office, and they asked me, are the lights too bright, or is this too loud? So people never asked me before. And so that was a relief that I could just tell them, okay, I'm not feeling well. This is bothering me. So that was my first impression. And I went there on the Thursday before the treatment week. So the treatment is most of the time 5 days. And I went there for my first scan, because they always do a scan before the treatment, and they do one after the treatment. And then they measure the bloodstream. And I'm not sure about all the knowledge behind the scan, but they measure it, and they can see what parts of your brain are too active and which part of the brain are not working at all. So I got this scan, and then on Monday morning, the first day of my treatment, they showed me the results. And they were telling me, okay, this must be a symptom, this must be hard for you. So exactly the things that I was feeling, they were already mentioning those things before I told them how I was feeling. So this was such a relief, because I finally thought, okay, they know where they're talking about.
I'm getting heard, I'm getting seen, I'm getting understood.
Exactly. Yeah. And my biggest fear by going there was that they could find anything, or that it would be disappointing again, because I already tried many things and most doctors couldn't find anything. All my tests were like, okay, nothing is going on with you. Everything is fine. So this was the first time that someone actually said, okay, we see on the results you have a concussion and we can help you. So it felt like they were really able to help. Yeah, I was really excited on my first day. That's what I remember.
Was that also finding out in that moment, sitting amongst people who you're finally feeling like you're getting validated? Was it also an emotional time? Did you sort of almost like surrender and just sort of think, thank you?
Yeah, it has a big impact, and also the connection, because you do the week with other people who sustain a concussion as well. So it was also my first time that I met people who were going through exactly the same thing. And I never had this before, because I don't know why, but I didn't search for it on the internet. I was just in my own bubble, I guess. And I felt always like I'm alone. I'm the only one dealing with those symptoms. I never knew anyone who was dealing with this. It felt like I wasn't alone anymore.
It's almost like a little family coming together, all experiencing the same journey at this clinic.
Yeah. From day one, you have this connection with them that you don't have with other people. So it felt like the connection was sometimes even stronger with them than with some people I already knew for a long time. Yeah.
Our anniversaries are very similar of when our incident occurred. And even in the last year, I'm meeting like-minded people, and I resonate with your words. There's people who I've known for a very long time who I consider very valuable in my life. But the conversations that I've had with people who are going through their journey similar to mine in the last 12 months, I could not have been more grateful for those moments and meeting them. What else did they get you to do during that week at the clinic?
Yeah, so we started every day, every morning, this fixed schedule. So I saw this schedule. You get a schedule on Monday morning, and I saw it and I thought, oh my God, this is way too much. Can I even handle it? Full schedule from the morning, 8 o'clock, sometimes until 5 p.m. So this was like, felt like a full working day. But it's really strange because everyone was thinking the same, but we all completed the full week, and I was doing okay. And every morning you start with doing interval training. So this exercise, they guide you through it. And then afterwards you have some like 15-minute break, so you can just calm down and rest a bit. And then you start right away doing exercises. There were a lot of cognitive exercises, also balance exercises, also doing all those things at the same time. So for example, you were standing on this balance ball and you had to catch a ball from someone there, and at the same time you had to answer a question, and there was some background noise, for example. So you had different kind of classes. They were all scheduled one-to-one sessions, so it's not a group thing. It's like really personalized treatment. And so they are really pushing you to give the maximum you have. A lot of people, they were telling me, oh, on Wednesday I felt so much better. But then it was Wednesday and I didn't feel better. And I was so worried. And I thought, oh, this is not helping me. Why it's only helping others? And I was so disappointed on Wednesday. But then on Thursday, I was feeling like this bubbling feeling in my head, like there is sparkling water in your head and it's like opening up. So that was what I felt on Thursday. And I remember that I called my parents and they told me, oh, your eyes look brighter. And Thursday I felt like, oh, I feel the first improvements, and I was so happy. And then on Friday I felt worse. So I thought, oh, I felt so bad on Friday, but I thought maybe I gave too much. I pushed everything I had in 1 week. So they told me that's normal, and just rest during the weekend and you would feel better. So yeah, Thursday was great. Friday was a bit of stress again, but I think that's normal because yeah, it's just a new situation, new people, being active the whole week. And they were right. On Saturday I was feeling better.
So you do this amazing week. It's a bit of a roller coaster in how each day has presented itself. So going home back to the Netherlands, do they give you a lot of information to go home and follow through with? What's the next step for you after leaving the clinic?
So you're still continuing doing everything you learned there at home. And I continued with everything for almost a year because I felt it was helping me. But after a year, I thought, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. So I was a little bit done with all the exercises and all the things, and it felt like I gave everything I had. So after the year, I dropped everything, and they told me, yeah, just try it, do it, because I still had contact with them when I had questions, and they are so supportive. So they told me, yeah, maybe it's time for you to let go of it, to just try to live your life like you want to and just feel how you feel. If you feel you're getting off a bit more, then you can always fall back on the training. But so did let go of it after a year. So yeah, it's not just the week of treatment in Utah, but also the homework you have to continue with at home.
You sound like a very dedicated student. Credit to you. You gave it a whole year of persisting and you kept going.
Yeah.
And then you decide after a year, you're like, right, okay, I'm going to really try and step into what my new life is going to look like. What did you start doing differently at that point?
Well, I stopped with the cognitive exercises. I focused more on what makes me happy. So I travel again to do just things that make me really happy. And I also started with the first creations of creating a community like this. So that was the first time that it popped into my mind, or well, it already popped into my mind, but I was feeling bad. But when I'm in a bad space, you aren't able to create something. So I felt finally a bit more ready to make the first steps back to doing something that's fulfillment and that's helping others. And then I wrote everything down. And at the beginning, it was only like 1 hour a day, like writing and brainstorming and things like this.
I'm excited to hear about this. Where did the seed come from to create the Concussion Community, and what was the process? How did it all come about?
I think for 2 years I was feeling very lost and alone, and I reached out to many doctors, and they always told me the same, like take some rest, don't do too much, things like this. But in the end, when I look back at that period, I always feel some regrets of not being active from the beginning, because you only need some days of rest in the beginning and not for more than a year. So I know I can change things, and I wish that there would be more knowledge about it. And from the moment I stepped into the office of this concussion clinic, I felt like I wasn't alone anymore. I felt like I got the right information. And so I thought there must be something that can help others as well. And yeah, I just want others to know that there is the right knowledge out there. There are people who know what to do when you sustain a concussion, and not doctors who send you home by taking some rest. I just want to spread more awareness about the correct knowledge to help people to make some changes they can just do at home. So, for example, there is more information about nutrition, about exercise. There is an exercise plan about how to go back to exercise after you sustained your TBI or concussion. There is more knowledge about the neck. There are exercises for the neck. So there, for every aspect you can think of, there is some information out there. But I believe in a combination of support from others in the same situation and getting support and knowledge from the experts. And that's why I created this community. So people don't feel alone and they know what to do to move forward.
So when did you launch your Concussion Community, and what can people find on there should they join?
Yeah, so I launched this general website where you find all the information, and I did launch it in January 2021. So it's more than a year ago. And the platform with all classes, courses, and community. They can sign up to join the community. They just pay a monthly fee and they get access to everything. Besides this platform, there are also some free resources out there. So I have my podcast. I started this recently. I have my Instagram account, of course. And I also wrote an ebook about what helped me during my concussion journey.
I believe in synchronicities. I've listened to a couple of your podcasts. You give a little example of the topic you're talking about.
Yeah.
You give an insight into what the journey has been along the timeline from when it first happened to where we are now at the 5 years. Your first podcast launched on my birthday this year.
Oh, really? Wow.
So I thought, okay, well, that's the synchronicity, and I'm going to go along with that. I love the fact that you talk about that there are courses available as part of the membership. Can you please give some examples of what courses are available for people to do?
Yeah, of course. There is one about how to master your nutrition, how to get back to exercise, how to get back to work or school, improving your sleep, reducing your anxiety, a yoga meditation course. For example, the clinic I went to hosted a few classes, the cognitive ethics, but also Sydney Concussion Center.
Here in Australia, the Sydney Concussion Centre here in Australia.
Yeah. He provided a course about the neck and neck exercises you can do at home. I launched this course 1 month ago. I received a few messages from members and they tried the exercises and someone already felt like a relief after a few days. Just simple neck exercises, but some simple things can change a lot. So, but also some coaches or psychologists, yoga teachers, physiotherapists. So every aspect that can help, I try to find someone who has more knowledge about it and contacted them and asked them, okay, do you want to provide some information or what do you think you can learn people who are suffering from concussions? Right now, there are over 160 classes inside the community from all these experts and providing information. So I'm really, really glad they helped.
I really like the fact that you have covered such a diverse range of every aspect of a concussion and every aspect of an injury. But I also appreciate the fact that you've included the emotional and mental health aspects. If people saw you and I walking down the street, they would not even think that here's two women who have a brain injury because it's invisible. And it can be a very lonely and confusing and misunderstood world living in that when you're trying to advocate for yourself. So it's really wonderful that you're also catering to the physical element, the spiritual element, the mental health element. It's so good that you are catering all areas. It feels like as much as you've created this concussion community, I get the feeling that people turn up and this is probably the only place where they feel like they are connected to people who understand them.
Yeah, but I hope, yeah.
If you don't mind me asking, you initially were living in Amsterdam and then you've decided to move to a rural area in the Netherlands. How did you get to that decision? And I believe, and if I can ask, you have a significant other in your life. Did you meet in Amsterdam and you both decided to move rural, or had you already moved rural and that's where you met your partner?
Actually, it's a bit of a funny story because I lived in Amsterdam for around 8 years. And I always loved to go to Bali in Indonesia. So last year, around November, I went there again because a friend of mine was living there, and I just love just love the place there because it's more like peaceful and yoga, and
it's very free. And it's very free and easy.
Exactly,
lifestyle.
It's so different when you compare it to Amsterdam. So I went there and that's how I met my boyfriend. So I was living first alone in Amsterdam, but he already lived in a more like rural place. I already was thinking for moving from Amsterdam away for about a few years, but I didn't want to move alone to a more rural place because I was always scared that I would feel alone when I wasn't in the city anymore. So this was the perfect moment for me to move away and to start living together. So that's the story.
I love the fact that you travel to the other side of the world to meet someone who was from the Netherlands.
Yeah.
And here you are living together. I love those stories. You hear those stories a lot.
Yeah.
So how long have you been living in rural?
Yeah, since January. So only 5 months. Yeah.
How are you settling in? How's it going for you?
Good. In the beginning, it was a lot of changes, so I had to get used to it, and also getting used of not living alone anymore. Because when you live alone, you can just do whatever you want, and you can rest whenever you want. But so I had to get used to it for a few months. But I'm okay right now and doing better. So yeah, I'm happy that I made a move.
So wonderful. You're now in a relationship How has it been for you in the journey of trying to get him to understand what your world is like with a brain injury?
It's hard because I think you only get it when you have one yourself. But I try to talk about it, about how I feel. I try to mention many things, like, for example, when I feel overwhelmed, I try to explain why. I try to explain how it feels. I talk to him a lot, but I also talk to people who really understand it, and having the support from them makes it, I think, a bit easier, because I'm not only leaning on him, but also on people outside my relationship. Like, for example, also people online, but also friends who, for example, they had a burnout or something like this. They always get how it feels when I feel overwhelmed, and I feel a better connection with them. Yeah, I tried not to only talk to my boyfriend, but also to friends and people online who know how it feels. Yeah.
I have to say, I resonate with that in starting this podcast. So, again, I was about 5 months post brain hemorrhage, and I was at home and I had to really rest a lot as well. And just out of nowhere, I started birthing, like you, I started birthing this idea of doing a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interviewing people with all adversities. As much as my area of interest is brain, I'm interviewing people who are advocating with Down syndrome and talking about Paralympics and lots of different adversities. But I have to say, going on this journey, doing this podcast, meeting different people has been so cathartic and so healing.
Yeah, yeah.
I said to a medical person recently, I said, I feel like you've walked around with a camera looking at my life for the last year, and it's been so nourishing for me just hearing you speak.
Yeah, yeah. Same for me. Yeah. And I think it always gives me like this feeling of not being crazy or not feeling alone, and that it's okay to have those emotions. I always felt like everything was going well, and people didn't have any issues. And from the moment I sustained my concussion, and from the moment I was more open about it and I talked about it, people also shared their struggles, and you see, okay, the world is real. There is no perfect world. Everyone is struggling with their own things. And I believe when you open up yourself about your things, people are more open, and that's helping each other, right? So I hate this thing about social media, that people are only sharing their most amazing days and things. And I always love it when people are more honest and sharing their struggles as well. Yeah.
That's probably one of the things that I enjoy about your page. You've got quite a following, which is amazing because you are truly authentically honest. Well, for example, recently you went to Barcelona. From the Netherlands to Barcelona, it's just a couple of hours flight. But you talked us through going to the airport, being amongst crowds, a lot of noise, what it feels like, being in a foreign place. You were there on a holiday to see a friend. However, you were also talking us through your journey through it all. I feel like this day. I had to eat this day. I had to rest this day. I really enjoyed this day. I loved this moment. You put everything out there to cover every aspect of what you were feeling. And I think that's why I resonate so much with your page and everything that you represent. You're just saying, hey, this is me and this is how I'm feeling in this moment. I can also see that people are like going, oh, yeah, thank you for sharing that. And they make a connection to that experience as well. Keep doing what you're doing. It's working.
Thank you. It took some time. It took me 5 years to be more open. But yeah, right now when I do this, I always get these messages from people, oh, I feel the same, or it helped me. So yeah, it inspires me to share even more. Yeah.
But it takes a lot of bravery and a lot of courage to put yourself out there. But here we are. You've just met your 5-year anniversary. And I loved the post that you put on about that. You shared all the emotions of it. I have to say one thing about having a brain injury, as much as I'm a very wear my heart on my sleeve type person, I do get teary more now, especially also when I read other people's stories. And I really shed tears when I was reading. I was like, kudos to you. That's amazing. You're sharing everything that you're feeling on this day. But what are your plans going forward? What's some next steps that you're hoping to achieve for yourself?
For myself, I would love to travel more because this was one of my favorite things to do. And right now, after almost 4 years, I was able to enjoy it again. So I would love to do this a bit more. And I don't try to think of the very, very near future, but more, I try to live more with the day. So if something makes me
Yes.
happy today, then I'm okay. But of course, I have goals. My dream is to live next to the beach, for example, or maybe moving to Bali. I don't know. Let's see what the future brings. And my plans for the community is to make it even bigger and to help more people. And I would love to also add some new things like maybe my own courses or more one-to-one help from me. But I do it step by step because otherwise it's maybe a bit too overwhelming. So I try to reach more people right now. So I really hope it's helping them. And I'm really excited to see where it will go within the next year or next, for example, 10 years. Yeah, I can't wait for that.
I really admire the fact that you really listen to your body. Like one thing you just said, you're mindful about becoming overwhelmed or things getting too big. One thing that comes through about you is that you really are mindful of listening to your body and you
Yeah,
pace yourself.
I'm trying to, yeah.
The name of this podcast is called The Brain Game Changer: How Heartfelt Stories, Awareness and Education Can Change the Game. If there's just one little piece of information, one little golden nugget, a tool, anything to share with people, what would it be?
Well, there was one thing that is still helping me a lot, and I try to do this a few times a week. It's the interval training I learned in Utah because, well, they told me when you do interval training, there is getting more oxygen to your brain. And I always feel such a difference when I do them and when I don't. And I give this advice to many others and they all say, oh, it's helping me. It's giving me a boost of brain. So for everyone who's listening and who didn't try it yet, try it yourself. And it doesn't have to be long. It can only be 5 minutes a day, but just pushing yourself do a little bit more exercise or I believe that's helping a lot because exercise is so important.
Exercise, people underestimate things like sleep and exercise and nutrition.
Yeah.
They really do.
And it's all connected, right? So exercise and sleep is connected. When you do exercise, your sleep pattern is better. And also when you eat the right nutrition, your sleep will be better and you are able to exercise better. So everything is connected. That's what I believe.
So true. And that's such great information to pass on. Silvie, thank you so much for your time. It's so appreciated. It's been great having you with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode today and supporting the Brain Game Changer and the guests we interview. I hope it added some reassurance or valuable tools, no matter how big or small, that will continue assisting you in being the wonderful game changer that you are. The best way to support the Brain Game Changer podcast is to like, share with family and friends, or subscribe, so each weekly episode is easily available to you. I'd love to hear your feedback, and you can also find me on Instagram at The Brain Game Changer. Drop in and say hello and check out the regular posts about awareness and education on various important topics and issues. Until next time, sending lots of love and light your way and looking forward to sharing the space with you again soon. Take care.